I'm James Bay. This is my 1966 Epiphone Century. The first Epiphone I bought, I'm pretty certain, was called an EJ200, I think. And it was at a point in my life where I'd been playing electric and acoustic guitar in bands. And it was the first time I ever wanted to try going solo. I was falling in love with these solo artists. One man, one woman and a guitar. You know, Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon. It's a long list. The EJ200 with its bigger body, and it just made me sound bigger. It was a bit louder. I have always, even back then, dropped the strings down a whole step. Lower key paired with a big body and heavier strings just made a bit more noise when I was standing on the street busking on my own or playing at an open mic night. I was playing my Epiphone jumbo body in a pub in Kentish Town, and somebody filmed me while I was playing. It was an open mic night. Somebody filmed me. A record label saw this video because it got put up online. The record label called us up and said, "We love James's song. We'd love to hear more. We'd love to meet him. Can we fly you to New York?" Which was a complete sort of whirlwind invite. So we went. And I played more songs for them on that Epiphone jumbo body. And I suppose I know now that they got quite excited about that because they sort of invited my managers into a different office and sort of sent me off around New York, go and have a nice afternoon. They wanted to talk about doing a record deal, which I didn't really know in that moment. So I went off around New York and I found myself on Bleecker Street at a shop called Matt Umanov. They had loads of beautiful guitars. They had loads of Gretsch's and Guilds and Martins, and they had some Strats, and they had a few sort of 335s and 345s and things. And I saw this guitar hanging up there, red hollow body guitar. I just liked the look of it at that. I didn't study it any closer. I said, "Can I have a go on that?" And with all respect, you know, typical guitar shop, they were sort of reluctant. They kind of, if you're like a young 20-year-old or whatever, they're not betting that you're going to buy it. And I could not afford it. So they plugged me into one of those novelty little cigarette box amplifiers. It looks like a pack of cigarettes. You can plug a lead into it, and there's a little tiny speaker, and it sounds like nothing. And this guitar sounded great. And I'm playing away, and he's saying, "Oh, that's a wooden bridge. So you don't have a lot of leeway. You can't move the intonation around, and it's just the one P90, obviously, in the neck, which is often people like them in the bridge. It's a wound G string, like on an acoustic guitar. It's not easy to bend. You can bend the B, like on an electric guitar, but this guy, it's not as easy." And it had all these kind of qualities. And I think I probably played it for much longer than they'd have liked me to, because of course I gave it back. Said, "Thanks for letting me play that," and I left. And I met up with this record label that evening for dinner. And then the trip was over and we went home. And I thought to myself, and I even said to my managers, "I will buy that one day. If I can afford to kind of come back to New York, then I'll buy it." When I got home, a week or two later, my managers called me and said, "If you're free this afternoon, can you come into the office? There's some mail for you." And I went in and there was a big dusty box. I opened it up and there was a note from that record label. They said, "We heard you really like this guitar. We wanted you to have it." So they bought me this guitar. I went on and wrote most of my first album on it, recorded my first album on it, and I've never stopped playing it. I suppose the things that have stood out to me over time are the same things I kind of fell in love with it for at the beginning, and that's the limits. There's limits everywhere. The thing about the G string, you can't bend it it looks like an electric guitar, but you can't, all these limits have become really inspiring. It's a hollow body. Usually that means a lot of feedback. Luckily, it's a really shallow hollow body, so there's not too much. If I want some, then I can kind of get some, but typically it kind of behaves in that way. And it feels like a sort of plugged-in electrified acoustic guitar in so many ways. And those are the things that have continued to sort of make it inspiring. to this day. In about 2015, I was playing a show in San Francisco, a festival called Outside Lands. Amazing festival, incredible crowd, and we really went for it. And I believe that the original E from 1966 is still somewhere in that field, because it got knocked off when I was playing. It's okay. I guess it was meant to be. So we found a new Epiphone E, kind of replica. This is a P90, which some people might not know, but a lot of people, guitar people, will know. They don't behave very well, especially in like TV studios and stuff where there's lights. You start playing and there's a lot of buzz. And I put up with it for a long time, and now this is a noiseless P90 to a degree. It's still not perfect, but it makes a lot less sort of buzz and still sounds pretty great. And then the newest modification, it was finally time, and this one sort of tugged at my heartstrings a little bit, but I have had this guitar refretted because it's very old and I have played it live so much myself. I've beaten the old frets up. I did say though, could I please have those frets, to the tech who put the new frets on. He sent me back the old frets because I wrote most of my first album on those frets. There are so many songs that I wrote on this guitar. I suppose the most famous ones, I Let It Go. Originally it was that part, and then once we had that down on this guitar in the room, wrote that. The riff that goes over the top of the first part. I sat with a very good friend of mine called Ian Archer one day. Best part of 7 or 8 hours passed, and we had a great day. We talked about all kinds of things, came up with little ideas that didn't quite float. They sort of sunk away again. And then in the last sort of 45 minutes of the day, I was sat on the floor and I played that, and it became Hold Back the River. And it's weird actually sat here now, playing it through this amp that I've never plugged into before. It's amazing how a guitar can sort of hold a signature sound, because that does actually sound to my ear, and I don't listen to my own music, as I'm sure you can imagine, but it sounds like the record. It's weird that that thing that legends talk about sort of works. And then so to be invited myself in my mid-20s to or probably in my early 20s actually, to do a signature of the guitar that I've been walking around the world playing so much was, completely unbelievable. And the attention to detail, I suppose the attention to me as an artist as well was very amazing to be on the receiving end of. I will now and again still go back to the EJ200 that I bought when I was 15 or whatever. And it still literally resonates and emotionally resonates. And I think that's something that Epiphone still does so well. I love playing these guitars. I always will. And that is my Epiphone story.